work. I've worked in higher education, and I've worked in post 16, which has been my longest work experience, over 11 years being a careers advisor. So that's kind of my background in terms of my education, and it's been varied in terms of the positions I've done, but also it's been fruitful in helping young people right up until adults to prepare themselves into terms of their aspirations and career goals, and just supporting. Yeah, it's been my kind of skill set. So that's a little bit about me, and obviously I'm a trustee.
At the moment, all I can see is a frozen picture of Marcia. Liz, did you want to get the PowerPoint up?
Yeah, sorry, just because I think I started sharing too quickly, too soon. I'll start sharing the PowerPoint in a moment. Yeah, I'm Liz, and I'm a trustee of WFDA, and I work with my job is working with adults. I support students at university and adults in the workplace, and I've been through the education system myself, and but many years ago. But interestingly enough, I've just started a new course, which has been a bit of an eye-opener. So I might share that with you a bit later. Okay, so
we are recording, by the way, everybody.
Do you want to share? Are you going to share the screen?
Yeah.
Do I keep freezing? I'm not sure.
Okay.
We can see that. We can see your first slide, your PowerPoint.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
So as you can see from the title, it's Demystifying Education and Training, Learning Opportunities for Neurodivergent Adults. And what we're aiming to do with this session is really to try and break it down for everybody, explain any terminology that or ideas behind sort of the education system for adults and training opportunities, and just show you what's out there really. So the aim of this workshop is just an overview of what we're going to do today. Is we're going to provide a glossary of the terminology, because just sometimes that in itself can be off-putting and make it all kind of mysterious and unfamiliar and a bit nerve-wracking. We're going to take you through and explain the different courses and levels and different types of qualifications, because in itself that might seem a bit of a maze or a minefield. So we're going to try and break it down and clarify it for everybody. And we're going to explore the range of opportunities that are out there, and how to look for courses and the different ways of finding what you might be interested in. And then we're going to look at the support that's available for neurodivergent individuals and some tips. Like I say, both Marcia and I have been through the education system and we've looked at and supported lots of people. So any ideas and tips that we can share, and all of you as well can contribute and share with us. But I mean, I just wanted to highlight as well that we can't cover everything, and also there is a lot of information and we don't want to bombard you, but we want to just give a kind of overview of what's out there and the sort of main areas. But anything we can't include or that's missed out, we can pick up again next week. Okay, Marcia.
Marcia, you need to unmute.
So, sorry. Okay, sorry. So the aim today is to really introduce you to a range of opportunities, really, and to support you around, you know, being neurodivergent and dyslexic, and just exploring the advantages and disadvantages. And that will come through some of our sharing our experiences, and just the different learning opportunities that, you know, are available, but also addressing any of your concerns, to discuss accessibility and the support levels as well. So that's kind of the aim of our session today, and we hope we achieve that. And, you know, throughout, please do think about, you know, asking us any questions around some of those So yes, we've got, so that's the kind of question bubble. So if you've got any questions now that you want us to discuss, I mean, not discuss, but mention, so we can talk it through during the talk, that would be great. So I don't know if anyone's got any questions at this point that they may want us to consider through our talk.
I mean, I've got an observation that it's good to consider all levels of access to education.
Okay.
So it's great that you've got some reference to the Open University, actually.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Great.
Okay. What I've got here, I've minimized it because this is the way I want to try and type into the screen. So I'm asking all of you is, why would you think about learning or taking up a course? What would be the benefits or advantages of going back to education or taking up a course? Has anyone got any ideas?
New career.
Oh, it works. Career, great.
Learn new skills.
Learn new skills.
Pleasure of learning.
Yes. Cool. Not pleasure. Any more?
Dee said get a better
Take
job.
you out of your comfort zone. Take me out of my comfort zone.
Going out of your comfort zone.
I think it was getting out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
No,
Sorry.
I've got a very crackly.
Change career.
Change career, yeah?
Yeah.
That's kind of linked to new career, isn't it? So I can put it up there. New stroke change career.
Keeping the brain active.
Mm-hmm.
Get a job in the same field.
Sorry, Dee?
Get a better job in the same field. Just improve your job prospects in the same field.
I've got one that might be helpful. Continuous professional development. So, which is similar to what Dee's saying, but it's just, so say if you're doing accounting, you may do further additional training or something as well.
It might just be about your personal development, or in some fields, like in mine, you have to do CPD.
That's right.
Yeah, so it's kind of expected. Maybe there's getting qualifications might increase your chances of earning more money. Is that one?
Having new perceptions, actually. I mean, I've found that with study, it changes your perception.
Potential changing your perceptions, yeah. Stopping us going a bit stale, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we've got some really good ideas there, and also I think it shows us that there's a lot of potential in education and benefits, and obviously that's why a lot of people do it, isn't it? But it's not always, it can seem a bit worrying or concerning for dyslexic and neurodivergent adults in particular, particularly as mature learners. So what we're going to do is, let me go back to the current slide. Is that all okay? Can you see? I'm trying to go back to the big screen, but maybe I've fluffed it.
It's spinning, Liz. So
is that okay?
Yep.
You're there. Very good. It's safe.
Okay.
That's very
So
good.
what we're going to do now is think a bit more about getting into education and what it feels like as a neurodivergent adult to be in education. So we're going to do an activity in groups, and we're going to do breakout rooms. And in the invite that went out, there were 3 questions. I hope you've all had a chance to have a look at them. You've got them to hand. Otherwise, just take your time to have a look at them. One of us will be in the group with you. So what we wanted you to have a think about was to discuss, have you had a positive learning experience as an adult? And what, if you did, what made it positive? Do you see education as an opportunity? And if not, why not? Okay? So, Catherine, we go into groups now, yeah?
Yeah, you've got I think you're going to have about 3 groups, okay?
That's
So I need to assign people to 3 rooms. So I'm going to do this.
Should I stop sharing?
Well, no, I think I can do it.
Okay.
You hold on. People are coming back. Yeah, I think everybody's come back. Okay, that worked well.
Okay. Who was Marcia? Does anyone in your group want to give a bit of, what were the key things, if there's someone want to give us some feedback?
Almost, I finished this thing.
Sorry, does anybody, Simon or Sujan, want to say anything about what we discovered in our group? What was quite interesting in our group, we've all got some sort of experience in sort of the information and library world and museums. We all have a connection. I did a degree in information science, and Nujan's done a course in library and museum, and Simon works in museums. So we were just kind of like, how spooky is this? We've all got that background. But does anyone want to say anything? Simon, would you like to say anything about what we...
what was the question again? Well, I suppose I'll say that, I mean, yes, I have had a pleasant experience from education. I also said that it was while I was going through doing an undergraduate degree that I actually discovered that I was dyslexic, you know, sort of 15 years after leaving school. And I was just saying that I didn't actually find that out really until the end of the course. So although I have fond memories of completing that degree, I remember at the time I was kind of quite frustrated in coming out of it, not quite knowing what to do. And actually, I didn't mention this, but I also, and this is kind of like why I'm at these sort of in this sort of forum, is that I graduated 20 years ago, in that I found it very difficult to find assistance for adults in that sort of situation. 20 years ago. I think it's better now. It's not obviously ideal, as we know, but it's better. But as I say, 20 years ago, I didn't know where to go.
I agree with you, Simon. Yeah. 20 years ago, it was just bleak, wasn't it? I think actually what we've got now is a pretty good network of people working together.
Yeah. Sujan, do you want to say anything, or do you want me to just kind of put an overview on what we said?
Yeah, I just want to say that I think it depends very much on the college and the or the people. If you're doing private training, on the private training that's involved. I think it also depends a lot on your individual tutor as to how much support you get. I think it's just very variable between colleges, between subjects, between levels of education. I think, you know, that has been my experience, that I've had good experience and bad experience. When I was a late teenager, I had very bad experience doing a science degree, which I didn't talk about in the group, but which led to me dropping out. And I had virtually no support whatsoever from any staff member. And, you know, yes, things have moved on a lot now, which is great. And strangely enough, I was actually, whilst working in libraries, I was actually supporting students with dyslexia, yet I had no idea I had dyslexia myself. And I only discovered it while the student screening process was taking place at the beginning of the academic year. And then that led to me discovering at 48 that I was dyslexic. So it's very ironic that I was supporting people. Anyway, that's a funny story. Yeah, I think it does depend a lot, and I know that my college that I was working for did support dyslexic students, so including mature students. So again, it varies a lot.
Yeah, but I think we said overall that we think that education can give you opportunities. It was just about the experience and the way you're supported. That can have a knock-on effect to how you go forward with that, and the assessments, which I know we're going to talk about a little bit, but I think it can give you opportunities to learn and have aspirations. So yeah, we still think it's a good place to have opportunities to learn and extend your knowledge. Yeah, is that okay?
Who was the other group? Who was it a group 3?
Lois, it was Lois facilitating.
Yeah, so our group, we talked about, well, partly, you know, if you're not diagnosed, which a lot of people aren't until either late on or, you know, partway through, it's about not reaching your potential, really. So if, you know, that's the story of neurodivergent people, isn't it? That put in a lot of effort, but they don't actually reach potential. So that was one theme we had. But if you do get support, you know, the support is, you know, can be fantastic and can make a huge difference. So I don't know if Jenny or Sandra or hang on,
I think
Nicola want to add anything to it?
Just having the confidence to ask for that support, and I think it takes a lot of people a long way into their course to get it, and it's kind of a shame they don't really emphasize it right at the start, maybe.
Yeah. So and I learnt from Nicola, well, she was talking about 5 years ago, but the Open University actually paid for her to do an assessment, which was amazing. I didn't know that, so I hope that's still the case now. So that was good, but yeah, but getting support and understanding what you need to do through that support is crucial, you know, in terms of making the most of education, I suppose. That's the point.
Thanks, Lois, and the rest of your group. That's really helpful, and that's a really important point. And that's what part of this session is really. Well, largely the aim of this session is to sort of demonstrate what's out there and what is available and what support is available, and with next week as well, to help you know what you can access and how to do it, and support you now in your journey. In our group, I'll just summarise and then the others can add. I think two of them had done degrees, but both found it hard. And I think it was that not knowing that you were dyslexic, having had an assessment, and it was a struggle. Everyone kind of mentioned the reading aspect and being very frustrating. I think everyone saw it as an opportunity, and particularly in terms of career development. And someone actually found training courses at work where they really came to enjoy learning, and it was very motivating, and it was the methods that were used, and it was more visual, I think, and interactive, and it made them feel more positive about learning. One of our group felt that exams was a real block and a barrier to taking up further courses and learning. And assistive technology was seen as being a real breakthrough and helping her access learning and information, and making her experience going back into learning a much more pleasurable experience. Does anyone else in the group, like Andre or Dee or Jennifer, want to say something or add to it?
Nope.
So it sounds like outside of doing the degree, we found kind of better situations at work, and with a new, a different course, a non-degree course, but still a course at, quite a relatively high enough level. Things were easier for us, and, kind of after the degrees, things got a bit easier for us with the things that we kind of learnt after that, basically.
That's great, thank you. Okay, but should we move on? Right. Can you see this? Am I still sharing?
No, you're not. You need to go to share, and then we will get your slide.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, you can see me now. Great. We can see your screen.
Okay. Right. Marcia, I'll hand over to you.
You've got a wheel spinning. It's just loading up, Liz.
Sorry.
There we are.
Sorry, my internet's a bit slow.
Okay, you're there.
Okay.
Marcia?
Yeah, I'm here. So just to give you a little bit of an overview, I mean, it states it, but I'll just go through it. So you'll hear the terminology FE, which is referring to post-16 education, which is referred to as further education. There's a range of qualifications you can do at further education. And then the term HE is meaning higher education, where you can do degrees and undergraduate degrees, postgraduate degrees. You can do things which we'll talk about, like HNDs and other foundation degree levels as well, which fit under higher education, because you can do higher education within colleges. So there's a range of different qualifications that you can do. MVQs, maybe some of us are maybe more familiar. They were quite popular in the 80s or sort of 90s, MVQ. So they're more vocational, meaning that they're more practical. So you may do some theory as well as you may do some practical with that. And then we've got our BTECs, which are really standing strong. So you've got a range of different types of BTECs with it. It's again very vocational, even though they've put a really heavy assessment times of exams into it now. But they're vocational in the sense it could be business, media, art, travel and tourism, health and social care. There's all those kind of vocational types of qualifications. And you've got your diplomas. So some of you may have, I did a diploma in an access diploma in higher education, which led me on to go to university. And there are a range of different other diplomas. And so they can be lower sort of pre-diplomas, so the whole range of things. So those are kind of some of the sets of qualifications. There are others, and if you do need a list of them, I'm happy to send you those. There's cash diplomas, there's baccalaureate, there's all different things in terms of qualifications that you may do, and City and Guilds is another one that I remember, which we haven't put on there, but there's just a whole list of qualifications that we can talk about if anyone's got any questions about particular qualifications. Does that give everyone an overview? Does anybody have any questions on that? Okay, so when we look at the qualifications, they're put into different levels. So you've got here level 1, so I'm going to use my cursor, level 1, level 2. So at level 1, and there's even kind of a 0 level, which I've got on my other screen, sort of foundation, entry level, qualifications, level 1, sort of City and Guild pre-apprenticeships goes a little bit just between level 1. Then level 2 is your GCSE qualifications, and also you've got BTECs, which are equivalent to GCSEs, but they're vocational and MVQs. And the same within intermediate. Then your level 3s are the A levels, and you've got BTECs, which are equivalent to A levels if you're thinking about going to university, and then your advanced apprenticeships. So I'm not speaking too quite quickly. Then you've got level 4, level 5 and 6. So that's going towards higher education. There are other kind of apprenticeships at that level as well, which you can see here, and foundation degrees, which I mentioned. And I'm happy to go in detail with any of these in our discussion for next week, so you can have a bit more of an understanding about these qualifications. Some of them are vocational, so you can do foundation degrees. There's 2 types. One if you go straight into university as an adult, but there's also ones which you can do for 2 years, which are linked to work maybe within your employers, and then you can top it up to make it a degree. So there's a range of different aspects to that. And then masters, chartered qualifications. So when I was talking about earlier about continuous professional development, you have qualifications. I give the example like of accountants, where you may do ACCA courses or equivalents, which are quite a high level, equivalent to level 7, and then doctorate, which is like a PhD. So that's kind of the levels, which are really important, especially at the, like building yourself up and looking at where you may want to go. For some of us, some employers want your level 2 qualifications, or they will be happy to take the equivalent MVQs or City and Guilds. So it just varies on the kind of career or the journey you want to go into in terms of your future plans or goals. For some people, want to have a new change, or it can be just recreational as well. Does anyone have any questions on that? Are we okay?
Worth noting, Marcia, that those levels,
yes,
those levels actually incrementally take you up to level 8, doctorate, yes, which is about independent study.
Yes.
So actually, it consistently allows you to become more of an independent learner.
Yeah, that's true. Does anyone have any questions on that? I hope I sort of clearly sort of covered that. No? Okay. So
okay.
Should we move on then, Liz?
Yeah. So what I've done is a lot through here is just put screenshots in so that you can see what it looks like. And then when you get the slide sent to you, you can see the link, and at the end there's a slide as well with a lot of the links that we use for this presentation. But one area of educational in terms of opportunities is the Skills for Life framework and community learning, and there's so much out there. And I think they did do a lot to bring education to adults of all ages and different experiences and backgrounds. These are largely they're supported by the government. Community learning includes a wide range of community-based and outreach learning opportunities. They're managed by the local authorities and further education colleges, and they're designed to bring together adults of different ages and backgrounds, like I just said. And it's interesting that the places where you get these learning and training centres, and they're dotted around, you might get them in your local library. A lot of schools now, I know at my daughter's school, there were a lot of courses, things like ESOL courses, or conversation classes, the British, what's it called? The
citizenship.
Yeah, the citizenship course. So, and there's like in Leytonstone High Road, they've got a really nice training centre there, and they have run huge amounts of courses, and some just, someone mentioned right at the beginning, just for pleasure, mindfulness, meditation. So there's lots and lots of different courses, and it's quite interesting where schools are trying to get, I think, like family learning or for the parents to make it easier for them to access learning, so to hold it on site. So I'm a real leaflet picker-upper. So you might get, you know, leaflets in a cafe, or just, you know, in your local area, just have a look around and see where there might be some courses that are being run. I mean, there's the I think there's Learn Direct.
Direct still around, yeah.
There's little centres dotted around in Waltham Forest.
Yeah, I was going to just say with that, Liz, I mean, I live in the borough called Newham, and what we still have that framework very embedded within our community, and we call them learning zones or learning hubs, and some of them are based in like little centres, like you said, linked to colleges, but also linked to schools. And like you said, they do ESOL and functional skills like level 1 to level 2 in maths and English, and if you want to progress those on to GCSEs, if you get the grades from those functional skills, you can move on, but they're at a slower pace because you can build on them. I actually did a course in massage through the adult program, and they used to, but it's changed now, they used to put them through your letterbox, so there was a real kind of push on little booklets, which would be great, and I used to look through them. So it's a really good one to start and build your confidence if you're thinking of starting something. There's some really, building yourself in lots of things, performing arts, creative arts. It's just so many range of things. We still have a lot of them in Newham. A lot still comes through. I'm not sure how it's working now, but from last year we had loads of different courses. It was, they started at different times of the year.
Functional skills, actually, because they're a way, like, you might not necessarily want to do a GCSE, but they're ways of, they're qualifications that were created to help not have, got the formal education or qualifications from school to develop those skills. Okay, Marcia, this is your field.
I think I touched on it a little bit. So with BTECs, I did mention that they've got a range of vocational avenues. And as you can see, it says there are over 2,000 BTEC qualifications across the post-16 sector. They're really desirable because, take for example, the BTEC National, which is equivalent to 3 A-levels, for example. You could do in health and social care and build yourself to go into a career of nursing, for example, or social work. I'm just giving you examples where these vocational courses can lead you. So this is like a BTEC First, which is equivalent to GCSE, equivalent to A-levels, or the BTEC. So the apprenticeship route is come on leaps and bounds. I mean, there's so many sectors that you can go on to do apprenticeship as adults as well, from sort of from the post office to British Gas, Deloitte, sort of accountancy companies. So it's really become trendy. Internships, all of these can be done, and I think they've got Pearson's BTECs as well. So it's a whole range. And as I said, I have got a list. It might be overwhelming, but it shows you all the different ranges of BTECs that you can actually do, and it's just a really good way of getting your hands experience, because you do practical work experience with them as well. So you're not just in the classroom; you're actually learning from them. So I don't know what else I could, yes, it says it here, it's work-based, but yeah, it's very broad in terms of the vocation. So it's usually, as I said before, non-uniform courses in BTECs, hospitality, sport and leisure, performing arts, media, science, engineering. So it's just broad, as you can see. I was just giving you a list from working in the college, the kind of range we used to have in BTECs, and they're quite really popular. So that's a little bit about BTEC.
Thanks very much.
Okay.
Moving on, we wanted to show you about, this is the Access to Higher Education diploma. I don't know if you're familiar with it. And these are just quotes from the government website or the Access to Higher Education website, and it says they are designed to prepare people without the traditional qualifications for study at university. And it's to help people access HE courses, and they're available in a range of different subjects such as nursing, social studies, law, art and design. And this is the most important bit I wanted to stress, is they are for people who've been out of education for some time and provide a good foundation in the knowledge and skills required for studying at university level. So I don't know if there's anyone out there who are with us tonight who's done an Access course. You can unmute yourself and tell us a little bit about your experience.
I did, Liz. That's how I started my Open University degree. I done an Access course because I hadn't done any education, any learning for probably more like 15 plus years, and then work wanted me to do something, so that's how I got into it then. And then
how was it?
Pardon?
How was it?
It was fine until I got to my last year, and then I hit the brick wall, and luckily my son is severely dyslexic, so his tutor, I used to do my coursework when my son was having his private tuition, and she asked me what was wrong, so I just said, oh, I can't do it, I've got 4 books, I'm literally going from like page 10 to page 20 in one book, going to the next book, going to the next book, etc, etc. I said, I can't do it. And she said, oh, we've set up these like easy access questions kind of thing to see if people need further testing to see if they're dyslexic. So I thought I'd have a go. So I had to go. So I said, oh, thanks, see you next week kind of thing. The following day she was ringing me saying that she thought that I needed further assessment. I phoned the Open University and they just told me to go and get tested. So hence then in the last year of my degree I found out I was dyslexic in my 40s. So yeah.
Okay, thanks. You hit the wall and that was, you didn't know that you were dyslexic?
No, I always thought, you know, through school, didn't particularly like English, managed to get my O-level, but didn't feel I was very good at it and just thought that it was me. So rather than going to A-levels, I just done a medical secretary's course. Past that, which the dyslexic tutor was really surprised at because I managed to get like 90 words a minute. But like I said, if I knew it was my own kind of shorthand, and if I'd done it straight away, then I could transcribe it. If I left it for a couple of days, I wouldn't be able to know what I was on about. So I just thought I wasn't intelligent enough to go and do A-levels and then go on to university. But obviously, you know, through time and then changing jobs, when my oldest child was little, you know, the NHS were all then, oh, we need you to show your skills, because even though you had, even though I was in a management job before I went into the NHS, I didn't have the qualifications to back it up. So they wanted me then to get the qualifications before I could progress within there. So that's how I started my Open University degree then.
Okay, thank you. But it's possible, isn't it? And you managed, so well done, you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you want me to mention anything about not sort of doing an Access course, just the structure of it? I just wanted to, from my experience, I did an Access course. I did an Access course in Information and Library Studies. But what the course done, it broke down your maths and English, so you would get your level 3s in maths and English. You did things like presentation skills, essay writing, and we had in my course, because it was very specific to library and information studies, we did work placements. So it was really building. I think that was when I really learned about essay writing, how to support an essay. I hadn't at that point prior to that, I went through school and college, but I didn't actually learn to write an essay properly. So I would say that the Access course really helped me to understand how to construct an essay, and then I found my own way. It wasn't easy, but I learned to understand. Once I had a formula, I learned how to understand. So the Access course can really be good to develop all of those kind of skills, but it's pretty intense, I'll be honest. The other thing you can do, there is a pre-Access course. So what sometimes when you go to colleges and you get assessed, they may say that you cannot do the Access course, the whole 1 year Access course, but you could do a pre-one, and that's just to build you up, because you may have not necessarily had the skills prior to that. So it's just, I'm just giving you a little bit of an overview, but I really thoroughly enjoyed the Access course, and it really built me for the route that I chose in my career to go to university. I was quite more equipped than some of the A-level students, one obviously being a mature student, but also all of what I had learned, I could embed it into my degree. So I had some of the tools and the study skills approach, even though the journey changes along the way, but it gave me a really good starting point. So I'm quite fond of the Access course.
Yeah, and I think that from my experience of people who've done Access courses, and I met them like through supporting them at university, is it's that stepping stone, and it builds up those skills that you need. And there are a lot of people who haven't done them, they do struggle, particularly in their first year, because they haven't covered, they've come, especially if you come straight from A levels, you haven't necessarily got those skills that they want at university. So they can be really good for that and provide you a stepping stone before, so it's not too overwhelming when you get to university.
I think the key thing to mention though, and it may vary depending on your income, but they were putting loans into those, or in order to pay for those now. So college has really changed. The FE, further education, has really changed. The landscape's changed, and there's a lot more emphasis on paying for courses as adults. So those are some of the things I would say it would be really important to look at, to see if there are fees attached. Or when because I used to be a tutor on an Access course many moons ago, and what we would make sure is those students were doing 16 point something hours, so they were under the hours, so they didn't have to pay. But things have changed, so those are things I would say if you were considering that as an option, if you wanted to go to university. Now, university is not for everybody, but if that was a choice, this is a really good program, but it would be to look at whether there is a fee attached to doing that program.
Asia, just one thing to mention as well. Some unions, I know Unison used to do it, I'm not sure if they do it still, they will pay for some courses, especially if it's like the first step on like an Open University degree, one of those Access courses in there. They were paying for them to try and encourage the members to get onto the learning platform kind of thing. So I would, if you have people that are in a union, ask them to kind of get hold of their learning rep and see if they can, if not fully, then they might be able to give some partial funding for them.
Yeah, I'm unaware of that. I mean, they, in saying what you've just said, it sparked my memory that in parallel to Access diplomas, you've also got foundation degrees which are very similar. So that it's instead of going to do an Access at a college or a further education college, you can go and do, it's like an Access course, but it's called a foundation degree, which is 1 year. And sometimes it can be a general one, or it can be one that is linked to the degree that you might be wanting to do. So that's also, it's very similar structure to an Access course. University sort of adopted that and took that on as an avenue of getting students straight away into the doors instead of doing an Access course. So and also they've got foundation degrees, which is normally 2 years, but they're linked with your employment. So they could be probably routes that like you're talking about, that maybe, which I've never heard about, the unions supporting you and funding you. So they may do that because that's direct into a university kind of program as well. But yeah, thank you for sharing that. I'd have to find out some more about that, because
that's the great thing about these evenings, isn't it? There's so much experience and diversity amongst us all that it's a real pooling of knowledge, isn't it?
Can I just say something quickly?
Sure.
I was looking only a few months ago to do a course. And I'd heard before as well that people who want to do MAs these days, there are loans to do MAs for kind of everybody, because they're, you know, the government kind of wanted to give people a chance who maybe wouldn't have been able to do these kind of qualifications, a chance to do it. So there are loans for MAs, but I also discovered that there were kind of loans for things like doing A-levels and I think BTECs and things like that as well. So yeah, the playing field's been opened up a lot more to people. It is a loan, you will have to pay it back, of course, but it's you know, giving people an opportunity to do things that maybe, you know, they wouldn't have had that before.
Yeah, that's a good point, Dee, because am I still there?
Yes, you are.
Okay, it's something was frozen. That's a good point, Dee, because that's what I was mentioning about the access courses. You have to really do some research, and this is part of that preparation if you're looking into that, to find out. I did my MA 2 years ago and I had to get a loan, but there are sometimes, if you look at universities, there are scholarships, and I actually put in for a scholarship. Can you see? Sorry.
Yeah, we can still see you. I need to let people know that the internet is really quite bad tonight, and I just actually got disconnected, and it's taken me 5 minutes to get back. So I think we just got to be aware of this.
Okay, because I'm seeing lots of flashes, so I'm not sure. Yeah, that's probably why, because of the internet. So I was just saying that yeah, I've applied for a scholarship. So there are different types of scholarships and things that might be available depending on your income, your background. So it's worth looking into those as part of your research. And I can bring up or show you examples next week if people are interested. But I did apply for a student loan for my postgraduate Dee. So I'm one of those who did go down that road, but I also got a scholarship, so I paid quite minimal for my master's, and I was quite fortunate.
Cool, thanks.
Okay, great, thank you. Right, should we move on from current slide? We go. Can you see? Oh, I think it pauses when I go to the screen. There we go.
Yep, we can see it.
So apprenticeship, do you want me to carry on?
Yeah, do you just want to have a quick overview about apprenticeships?
Yeah, so apprenticeships, as I was mentioning earlier, has become really, you know, you've got lots of people who no longer want to go to university, want to do apprenticeships or internships. It's a new way of working, but apprenticeships are not nothing new, but it's just, you know, people are changing their focus around going to university. University is not for everyone either, and working and having that working, that kind of kinesthetic way of doing, you still have to do assignments, you still have to do assessments, and you will have assessors assessing you, but it's more work-based. There's just so many apprenticeships, and maybe next week we can actually show you the government apprenticeship website and just maybe do a few examples if we can. We'll try, if people want that, we can do that just to show you that how varied it is. And as we said, there's different levels from entry level right up to higher levels depending on your qualifications. Some apprenticeships will do assessments. As I said, I gave you an example like Deloitte, which is an accountancy type firm from British Gas. There are assessments for some of those, but there's also reasonable adjustments, and you can get access to work, which we may have talked about before. Have we spoken about access to work, which is a scheme with the government for those under the Equality Act who have a disability to get reasonable adjustments within their workplace. So you can get that with apprenticeships. And again, if there's anybody who wants me to talk about that next week, I can do. So yeah, the entry requirements vary, and yeah, it usually takes between 1 and 3 years, depending on what level you are at, whether it's the intermediate, advanced, or intermediate. So it varies, but it's a really, there's just so much going on with apprenticeships, and they can be competitive sometimes, depending on the kind of, you know, Barclays does some, so it just depends, but they are taking adults as well. So it's worth looking into if there's another route that you may want to consider. Does that cover it a little bit?
Yeah. Okay. Has anyone got any questions about apprenticeships? No? Okay.
I mean, the only thing to say is that it's you get paid, don't you?
Yes, you get paid, yes.
as opposed to having to pay out, you actually get paid.
Yeah.
And there are bursaries out there, for instance, for nursing or for mental health courses. You know, there are still a few bursaries out there, and for some subjects in teaching. So it's you need to look at it to see what grants or bursaries are available.
Yeah. Teaching for maths as well, and programming. They did have a whole push for getting into the decoding and that. So if that's kind of your skill set, that could be an aspect where you could get funding or your fees paid for, because obviously some of these kind of jobs are really sort of sought after for the future, sort of maths and decoding, because of where we're going with technology.
Yeah, and in some vocations they really want people, so you can get funding, like in teacher training.
I was just going to mention a boy I work with who really wanted to work on the railways as an engineer, and he wanted to go to university, but he really didn't get on with maths. He'd had a bad experience at school with maths, so it basically meant he couldn't do an engineering degree. But so he did an apprenticeship as a signalman, and he's absolutely, you know, flourishing with that. Yeah. So I suppose the point of that is that sometimes, you know, because of universities' acceptance criteria, you can be ruled out. But if you go through an apprenticeship, you can end up doing what you want to do. That makes sense.
Absolutely. And your employers even may take you that direction. Yeah, absolutely. And your employers may even take you down that route to do further study. You know, they can be supportive within some of those sectors.
And I think that's really, really important, Lois, and that's what we hope from tonight, is to show you that there are different routes to getting where you want to go, and that kind of, particularly for the older people amongst us, there's not that traditional route that we think that's the only way, or you have to, like this people going on and on about having a degree. You don't have to go to university. It might not be right for you, but you can still get a qualification at a similar level, but in a different way. So then the next part is, where do you look for courses? How do you find out about the courses? And of course we've got next week as well, and we'll talk about how we sort of prepare for that. But you can go directly to the university or local college. You can go to their websites, which will have a lot of information. You can go to open days. All colleges and universities have open days. You can go and visit them. I liked doing that because I like to go and speak to people and ask my questions, or just get a good feel for the place. Professional associations, particularly if you're interested in vocations, so you could say go to the Association for Accountancy. I think it's the AQQ, I can never remember the acronym, or the Royal College of Nursing. How, you know, or you just look for, you know, how do you become a vet, or how do you become a plumber, how do you become, and then look at the qualifications that are required. That might be a stepping stone.
I was going to say, you've got the National Career Service as well, which you can get a lot.
Yeah, National Career Service, and I think we're going to add a link, won't we, Marcia, to that. And then there's the adult education services and the links there, and there's a whole they have like information sessions, open evenings, they talk about childcare, different kind of schemes that are within that, and they're advertised. You can find them in the local papers, in your libraries, even supermarket notice boards. The adult education services tend to advertise all over the place to get as many people knowing about them. There was always the Waltham Forest Guardian always used to have like an inner spread on Waltham Forest College or the Adult Education Service with their open evenings. And then it used to be called hot courses, I remember, a long time ago, but there's also things like find courses. So this is what it would look like if you went to the website, and you have to sort of use the filters to look at, you know, what sort of category you're looking for, where it might be, and you can just have a search and see what's out there. And if we look here, this is still the final courses. There's like, what kind of training do you want? You can do online distance courses. You can do them remotely. Is it professional training? Is it vocational? Is it just for fun? So already it starts to break it down for you, and you can sort of either have a browse and dip into different things, or if you know what you want, then you can sort of go through the door, knock on the door, so to speak, and just enter that site and only get that information. And if you look underneath the popular courses, it tells you things like, you know, there's links into finance, apprenticeships, there's the different kind of sectors that you might be interested in. So you can see from that it's quite varied. There's one just for confidence building, courses for confidence building, or for business management. Okay, we all right with that so far?
Yep.
And then there's, you know, the wonderful Open University. Someone earlier, oh, sorry, I'm terrible at names. I can't remember what I think she said she did Open University. They've got free online learning opportunities, and there's a whole range of courses there, as well as the formal kind of degree courses as well. So that might be something you'd like to explore. Has anyone done an Open University course?
Me, Liz, Nicola.
Yeah, you have, yeah?
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I took up one of the free modules recently. I find that it's good. It's good to do, you know, be able to do things in your own pace, but there's a lot of reading involved, a lot of heavy text, quite bulky text.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but the whole idea of online learning is definitely more sort of friendlier to the dyslexic person. So I would still, you know, I like Open University. I would recommend it. Yeah.
You can do it at your own pace then. I done one model because I wanted to get it over and done with as quickly as possible. I took the modules that were like 60 credits, because I found out that if you took a lesser credit course, you were still doing the same amount of work. So I'm quite lazy, so I just assessed that I would just do like 5 or 6 60 credits or whatever, and then I'd have the degree. So I used to do one module a year then, and yeah, I did enjoy it until I got to the last turn and hit the brick wall, but never mind, I got over it. So, you know, I would recommend it to anybody actually, because you can do it at your own pace.
And I think that's really what you both mentioned, is at your own pace and it's flexible.
Also, Nicola, when we were in the small group, you said that they paid for your assessment. Well, not many universities will do that. You do get the odd one. So, I mean, that is, you know, that's a huge thing, because a lot of people who are at university or are going to university, you know, they don't get an assessment because they just can't afford it. So, you know, the fact that Open University will actually pay for an assessment, I think is a big plus.
They did at the time. I don't know what the funds are like now, because obviously it was going on government funding, I should imagine. However, what I will say to people as well, that, you know, I've said it before, that if they are in a union, ask them, you know, go to the learning rep and see what courses are available for them, because I know that I've got links with the Open University, and like I said, they did do my first course for me. That's how I got into it, and I didn't pay anything towards that. And if they're not able to pay for the full fee of the course, then possibly they could give you money towards the books and everything. So, you know, there's all all avenues to try and get you back into learning. You've just got to try and find the right avenue to get the resources, really, because they can be very expensive these days, can't they?
Mm. And some universities do have hardship funds for assessments, and they have like pots of, they always sort of tend to have pots of money sometimes that you can tap into.
Simon's talking about a base. Simon, do you want to say something about Future Learn?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I've done a few. I mean, I think there's lots of MOOCs, which I think is massive online something courses, and Future Learn's a really good example. And they do a good cross section of different subjects, and usually the basic course are free. I mean, I think you can pay if you don't complete the course over a certain time. You might have to pay, or if you want the certificate to complete it. But usually the basic course, if you do it within the time frame, which could be from 2 to maybe 8 weeks, they're usually free. But,
okay.
Really, yeah. I mean, I've just done some really interesting things on profession. Actually, did a really good, interesting one on professional development, and I did another one on the film industry, just as examples.
Oh, brilliant.
Sounds good.
Really good.
Yeah, really good. I'll have to look that up. And if we get some more links, we'll pass them on, or we can put them in the chat as well.
Yeah, because
maybe Simon chat.
Yeah, you still got places like City Lit and Birkbeck, which really focus on adult learning as well, but obviously a different aspect, not to the free courses. But yeah, we'll put some links together. I think we'll do, Liz.
Yeah, some of these more different, different types and alternative routes.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I'm hoping. Do you want to say a little bit about this, Marcy? But maybe we'll sort of talk more about funding next week if people are interested.
Yeah, if people are interested, or if you just say in the chat you'd like to find out more about student finance, how that works, and yeah, please do, and then we can sort of put something together.
But there is an actual. There's this I found in the government website, and it's about for mature students. So it's a whole website of information to help mature students and how to finance your qualifications and education. Right, Marcia, do you want to talk? Do you want to just talk a bit about this?
I'm just having a look. I can't see what it says at the top. What was this one? Sporting.
This is the BDA.
What about support available in education, Marcia?
I can't see. So I think it was just similar to what I said earlier, if I'm rightly, like there is support for students in terms of who've got disabilities under the Equality Act. I think that I'm not sure.
So this is just the BDA's website, and if you wanted to look here, it's, as you can see, there's the different tabs: further education, apprenticeships, higher education, adult study skills, and finding a tutor. So there's a whole section for adults, and it tells you about what support is available in the different sectors.
So
this would,
yeah, go on, sorry. Sorry. So this one is just about different terminologies. If you're looking at going into whether it's university, colleges, they've got different types of terminologies for student support. So we just thought, Liz and I, that it's really important to stress that. So if you are making inquiries or you want to speak to somebody in any of these departments, you have what we call here the additional learning support, ALS, student support, which is a bigger service which I used to be part of, and that would cover things like counselling, inclusive learning, student welfare. So that maybe it comes under a whole spectrum of different services. You've got disability support team, or it'll have disability dyslexia support team. learning support team and inclusive learning. So there's so many names for titles around support, and we just thought it was really useful so you have a clearer understanding if you're looking or researching to contact any of these services, that the names will vary because it depends on the trend or the set at the time. So names have evolved or stayed the same. So I thought that was key. I don't know if you have anything else to add to that, Liz, but that's...
Yeah, it might be, you think there's no support there, it's just because you're not familiar with the actual terminology of the college. But now they've got wellbeing centres, and the dyslexia support will be in the wellbeing centre. So, but there's just to sort of alert you to the fact that there's different terminology for describing the same thing.
Yeah, and they're so important if you can access them. And like I think Sujan and a few other people have said, that if you get that right support, it makes a lot of difference in having that communication and dialogue.
Absolutely. So what we're talking about now is the support that's available out there. Do you want to talk about the apprenticeships, Marcia?
Remember this slide in terms of apprenticeship, in terms of I think I mentioned that already, about that you can get access to work for that, and in FE you can get additional support and tutors one-to-one as well within colleges, but these things is why we said in the previous slide that it's so important to have those dialogue and saying these are some of the needs or things I'm experiencing. One of the key things to mention as well, a lot of colleges now, for lots of reasons to do with funding and making sure that they're not failing students, they do screenings at the beginning. So within the college I used to work at, all students were screened to know their kind of English and maths levels and determine whether they need additional support or there's a possibility of them being dyslexic. So that was something that was really, really new for a college, and had to get their whole head around doing it. But it was really useful to the students because it made sure they was on the right course and right levels. So I think that's important to mention. But if you don't mind, Liz, because I'm just trying to think at what, in terms of what else I need to say on this one.
And also, you don't need a formal diagnosis necessarily.
Yeah.
And also, for the, like someone mentioned earlier, like in our breakout room about the exams being a barrier, you can get access arrangements for exams. So throughout all education, so you can get extra. So the big one is extra time. It might be that you can type your answers on a laptop. You might get a reading pen to help you. So there is provision, and they're called access arrangements or exam arrangements. And you would, and if you mention it to the college when you're applying or when you start, then they can be in place. And I would always recommend getting things in place as early as possible.
Yeah, you really do need to talk to the support services, and they really work with them about what you need. I mean, I worked with a student who needed a room by themselves because then they would be distracted looking at the other people in the exams. So all of those will be access arrangements, like you said, and it's normally about 25% extra to your peers or your other learners.
That makes just such a difference, just having that extra half an hour or extra 20 minutes, whatever the 25% is. And it might be like if you have ADHD, you could have someone who like is a prompter, or you can have rest breaks. So you're allowed, you can go out every sort of 20 minutes, or you have someone who sort of gets you back on track and it prompts you with your attention. So there's a whole range of access arrangements. It's not just extra time, but it depends on what maybe your challenges are. And that they're for higher education as well. And in higher education, which is one of the good developments now, we have the Disability Student Allowance, DSA, it's abbreviated to, which is run by Student Finance England. You need a diagnostic assessment, but they did change the rules recently, I think a couple of years ago, and it's from any age. So before you had to have one from the age of 16, whereas now you can have, like, even if you go as a mature adult, if you had an assessment at the age of 15, it would still be eligible. And then you have a needs assessment once the DSA is processed. You have to fill out an application online, or you can print out and fill out the form, and then you'll get referred for a needs assessment centre for an assessment. And what they look at is your course, what the requirements of your course are, and what support you would need for your course. And that would be maybe usually it's a one-to-one tuition. So they might recommend the standard is about 30 hours a year. So it's 10 hours a term, and assistive technology. You used to get a computer, but now you have to make a contribution. It's the first £200, I think.
I think I paid £250 actually, but yeah, the first 200. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you. Yeah. That's right. I mean,
no, that's fine. And then report, you get a full report. It's usually quite lengthy, and some of them are, they're structured a bit differently. But you'll have like reading, what your challenges are, and what support they recommend. And then you might have writing. If you have a placement, it will talk about adjustments or recommendations for your placement. It will have recommendations for the university. So it's a kind of a plan of support to help you and to inform others working with you. So as a tutor, for example, I always ask for the needs assessment, and that will be my first port of call. I go through the needs assessment before I meet the individual, and so then I get an overview of their whole picture and and also what support, what software they're being recommended as well.
I think it's important to mention, Liz, and I mean, I only did my MA 2 years ago, but still I wasn't feeling empowered enough to make sure I was clear about my needs. Obviously, I talked about some of the challenges I may have through learning, but the laptop, for example, I had, it wasn't the greatest laptop. So, it's knowing what kind of technology is out there. So when you go through your assessment and when you get the reports or before, then question some of the computers, or making sure you know the types of computer that you want. I know there was a whole thing about Apple, Mac, and getting that through your DSA, but you do need to really push sometimes at some of the things that are better equipment that will be better support you. Like the laptop I've got, that it's just really clumsy, and I just wish I knew. So those kind of things, obviously you can speak to us if you've got any questions about it, but it's really worthwhile doing some investigation or some time sort of looking at what softwares are out there. I mean, I got the laptop, I got an extra screen because one of the things it found that I need to look from screen to screen. It helps me more in the way I process information. I got an e-pen, so it helps me when I'm reading, and various things. You get extra funding for like your photocopying, and there's just a whole range of things that you'll get extra support. But definitely if it's to do with equipment, really know your equipment. I can't urge you enough. That's a really good tip that I'm passing on, because sometimes you just get, it feels like the end of stock stuff, and that's not what it should be about. It's about having the right stuff to access to support you. So that's just a tip from me that hopefully it might be useful.
Just another thing, when I was doing after I'd been diagnosed in the last year, I found travelling to be quite stressful before an exam, to make sure I got there, because my examination building was an hour on a train. So if there was any delays or anything, then I would start to get really uptight. So to do that, I asked if I could sit my exam at home, and they did support me to do that. And I was able to use a laptop in my own home, and somebody came in then to vigilate it. So if you don't ask, you don't get, kind of thing. So just try everything.
Absolutely, I agree with you. You've got to be assertive in this field sometimes for the things that you require.
You've got a question from Simon. Simon?
Well, I was going to maybe leave it for next week.
Well, okay, if you want to.
I've just put it there to remind myself, I suppose. Okay. Otherwise, I'd forget next week.
Okay, fine.
Thank you.
That's all right.
That's absolutely fine, Simon. I'm just wondering, how far are we through the presentation? Because you've got next week, haven't you, Marcia and Liz?
Yeah.
How do you want?
Yeah, I mean,
how do you want to wrap this up? Because you're saying you're going to talk about funding next week, and Simon would like to talk about people's experience of support with short informal courses. So
okay.
there's quite a bit to talk about next week. How do you want to conclude this session?
Well, how about we start wrapping up? The next couple are just basically just to show you what things look like. The print screens. But maybe the videos, we can show them next week, and we'll just go straight to the top tips and then any questions. Does that sound okay?
That sounds good.
And we can do the case studies next week as well then?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're having more discussion next week, and actually you're giving much more of an overview and top tips this week.
Yeah. So just to let you know that, like for Waltham Forest College, this is what their additional learning, it says student support, as you can see, and then the additional learning support. So they're actually using the different terminology on the same page. And there's, if you see that on the right, it says get in touch and the ALS team. So there's usually a department within the college that you can contact. And then this is for University of East London. So they've actually got, their page is disability and dyslexia. So they've got a team there. So these are 2 videos that we can show you next week, actually. So if we just wrap up with the top tips, I think Marcia said, I think it's been a theme throughout the evening, has been to do your research and find out as much as you can in advance, and also to get the ball rolling, because I've got to college, to uni, and I applied for DSA, and I really feel for my students because I always had lots of complaints. It's a bit of a monster, and also now with the whole COVID and lockdown, and it does take a long time. So if you can do as much in advance as possible, I would encourage you. Things like visiting the college, I know for a lot, particularly for mature adults who haven't been in the education for a long time, it can just feel like a real big, mountain really. So just breaking that barrier, take it in steps, go to an open day or an open evening, visit, speak to people, find out if there's any ex-students, or if you can find anyone who's studying there, what it's like to be a student there.
A lot of it's virtual now, Liz, as well, just to mention. A lot of those visits are now virtual at the moment.
Yeah. Applying for support early, contacting the disability support unit. That might be a nice way of, entering and beginning the process. But I think the thing we want to stress as well is that set your goals high. Start with, what are you interested in? What do you want to achieve? Where do you want to go? And I think the people that were in our breakout room were saying, having a purpose can really help you through and keep you motivated. We need to be realistic being neurodivergent, but be ambitious, set your goals high, and then try and get things in place and the support that you need to get you through it. Did you want to add anything, Marcia?
No, I think you're going along the right lines of what I was, thinking. Definitely be ambitious and be realistic. Yeah, all those things resonate in how I've approached my learning. Yeah. I think,
you might strike lucky, and there are good places out there. There's good departments or good tutors, good support, but I think if you go in being ready for a struggle, perhaps, but believe in yourself, and if you're dyslexic, neurodivergent, you are going to be persistent and determined and being proactive. And there's the Equality Act, it's your entitlement as well. But maybe we remember Sadia. If you hope you don't mind mentioning, remember it was the adult meetup, wasn't it? And your experience of higher education, it was a struggle, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It was further compounded by the fact that my diagnosis came quite late, actually, as I started the course. So I was trying to get to know my learning style as well as trying to just keep up with the course. So, but what kept me going was just the fact that, I enjoyed the actual subject and I knew that I could, pass it. It was just persevering.
But I think that's been a real theme actually, is making, you know, if you want to do a course or you're in training, you know, that assessment and knowing what you need and getting that support as early as possible, and ask for help, knock on doors, you know, email, get in touch with, you've got WFDA, you know, we're there for you. There's a whole pool, and I think the next step, what's been really brilliant about it these last couple of months, is there's a whole pool of support and a real diverse range of experience and backgrounds, and, you know, people who've done training courses, they've done, you know, Simon's mentioned these other courses, we've found out about the unions, we've got, you know, people who, we deliver support to students all the time or in the workplace, you know, whatever kind of course you're thinking of doing or are doing, if you need any help, just call on us, you know. And the one thing as well is, education is for everyone. Learning is, and I mean learning with a small L, you know, it's a lifelong, you know, they talk about lifelong learning. If you want to do so, you've got a little flame, but you're worried or concerned there might be an exam or there might be assignments, what's it going to be like, you know, talk about it. Let's all share and we'll all encourage each other, and let's find out the best way for you to get to, you know, to achieve your potential and fulfill your ambitions.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Liz. I know that Dee was quite interested in peer support. You know, you're talking about sharing potential and supporting each other, and that's something that might be an outcome of this next step program, that there should be a peer support service happening.
Okay.
Okay then. Dee, did you want to talk about that, or did you want to save that for later?
Yeah. In terms of the WhatsApp group, is that what you meant?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I just thought that, you know, we've become quite a community here, and I just thought it would be really good if we could continue this after, well, not even waiting on necessarily until the course finishes, you know, maybe starting a WhatsApp group, and we can kind of talk about our experiences in there, talk about things that we're finding difficult or things that are working for us, or just kind of, you know, support each other. Kind of, you know, so during the week when we're not here, we've got that, and then beyond the course, we've got that as well, really.
Okay, Dee, do you want to organise that? If people put their phone numbers in the chat, would you be willing to organise a WhatsApp group?
I could do, yeah, I could do that.
I know with my work at, I do one day at the Working Men's College, and my students have set up their own WhatsApp group, and it's led by the students actually. I mean, I'm allowed to be part of it, but it's very much a student forum, and it might be, and I think it's a really good idea, Dee.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I can do that.
So if people want to put in the chat their phone numbers, or how do we do this? Or we think about it and then we put it in the chat for next week for a WhatsApp group, yeah?
I think that's better, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Does anybody, so just before we finish, does anybody have any questions? Just not questions, but like things that they might want to put forward for next week. So I know Simon had some questions. Is there anything else that anybody wants us to discuss or bring up?
Can you stop sharing, Liz, so we can have a go?
Yeah, sorry. Let me stop sharing. Sorry. I'm still not familiar with this thing. Stop share. There we go.
Thank you.
So I was just asking, is there anybody who has any questions or things that they want us to look at for next week in particular? So we just make sure we're on, you know, going guided by you as well as a group. No, we're all happy with the pace and what we're informing you with. It's okay?
It's just one question I just wanted to ask.
Yes, Sandra.
I heard the chatting about a chat. I don't know how to send any messages to that. I've been trying to figure that out, messing around with it, but I just don't know how to do that. So that would be something someone could look at to show me how to do. Sandra, this is Sandra.
Are you